great, strong, and reliable characters that have been so strong they can be considered in their own category, such as with Goku, Kaneki, Guts, Naruto. But the strongest of them all is going to have to be Suguru Geto, the head of an entire generation, a man who is literally untouchable, who floats above others. Gojo seems to exist in his own envious position. He has what all characters in manga want, to be strong enough that he can accomplish everything he desires. However, being strong is not everything, as the Jujutsu Kaisen world is depicted as an unknowable complex, one where matters are not solved on strength alone. Suguru Geto is extroverted, easygoing person, but the loneliest character in JJK or Jujutsu Kaisen. Firstly, Gojo wasn't always alone in the beginning. He did have one friend he could count on, Suguru Geto. In Volume 0, he said that Suguru Geto was the only friend he's ever had. Although they fought a lot, although Suguru became a wanted mass murderer, and although Suguru wanted to kill him, he still thought Suguru as his best friend, despite Suguru thinking they weren't friends anymore. We can see in the hidden inventory art that Satoru wasn't goofy as he is now. He often fought with Suguru, trying to assert his dominance, but Suguru did the exact same thing. He was not as strong as he is now. He couldn't use reverse healing techniques or keep his infinity stable for a long time, let alone using red, blue, or purple whenever he wanted. He viewed Suguru as an equal, and it was clear that he was so comfortable around him that he didn't even feel the need to joke a lot. He was much more serious. Even during the beach scene, when Suguru realized his friend hasn't slept for 3 days, Satoru said, "I'm good, man. Besides, you're here too." And this makes it obvious that he felt safe around Suguru. They used to be the strongest duo together. It's when Ayuguru went with Imani and Satoru stayed that everything went south. Now, speaking about another scene that I think it's important when discussing Imani's situation, it was him who said they call it off if Imani didn't want to sacrifice herself. He has also said, I think it's after he found out Itadori had died at the time, that children and teens should be allowed to enjoy their youth. We know nothing about his family status, only that he is the head of the clan, but having the Limitless and the 6 Eyes must have put a lot of pressure on him as a child. I have a feeling that he's never really got the experience of a normal childhood. Because of that, when he was born, people either saw him as their savior or as their enemy. The more strength that one has, the more responsibilities one has to carry. Having said that, I don't think many people have ever viewed him as a human being who has feelings and flaws too. Well, besides Geto probably. Even Toji called him a damned monster. Honestly, if this is the case, of course he thought of himself as the strongest. So when he entered high school and saw Suguru taken out of his superiority complex, not only did that make him interested in Suguru, but it also made him respect him and see him as an equal. Geto plays a huge role on Satoru Gojo's character. Obviously, he was the person he cared about the most because the only times Gojo showed a bit of weakness, Suguru was involved, such as Gojo crying after he heard what Suguru has done. When he confronted him and got angry at him, instead of killing him, a criminal, he let him go. That might have also been because they were in a crowd, because they can't, he's not gonna fight a freaking criminal in front of people. He's gonna kill him basically. But afterwards, he seemed extremely upset. In Volume 0, before he kills Suguru, I'm still annoyed that we don't know what his last words were to him, but analyzing the scene, it seems obvious that he said something related to how he was his best friend, that or he was crying again. And of course, during the Shibuya arc, when he lost himself for a second at the sight of Suguru's body being used by Kenjaku. If it hadn't been for Suguru, Gojo would have probably committed mass murder too right after Imani was killed. He had always been arrogant about his strength, so when Imani died, he realized that he wasn't strong enough and managed to reach his potential in 1 to 2 years basically. When his best friend betrayed him, he felt insecure and lonely, and he realized it wasn't enough for him to be strong. He needed strong allies to back him up. That's why he became a teacher, to train people like Yuta and Itadori, and for everyone to be around him. That's why he decided to become a teacher. Gojo has always been lonely, even during the time that he was really close to his 2 friends, Geto and Shoko. Since Gojo never experienced a normal childhood, his life was too complicated for most manga readers because they couldn't relate to having no family at all, even when we did get to see most of his youth in the flashback. Even today in the manga, we still don't get much of his family's future or past, especially since he got killed by Sukuna. I wish we kind of learned more about the inner structure of the Gojo clan. Of course, when we met Geto, Suguru, they were probably equally strong, and Suguru often humbled him by by challenging him and acting like he could lose. He became the strongest when he was still friends with Suguru, and after that, no sorcerer or human matched his strength anymore. None of them even tried to get to his level or understand him as a person. So this distance between him and everyone else had been created. Nobody viewed him as an equal after that. Everyone besides his schoolmates and teachers admired him to the point where they chose to ignore his flaws. And if they did notice them, they would distance themselves from him. Gojo's personality type is ENTP. And after reading an article about ENTPs, here's a quote about ENTPs' relationships. Just because they can make friends and connections doesn't mean they don't experience loneliness. ENTPs can actually feel rather lonely throughout their lives, never truly feeling that they can connect with enough people. ETPNSs find themselves curious about people, but not feel like they can connect with them on a deeper level. They don't like feeling lonely, even though they enjoy being alone more than most extroverted personality types. There's no greater emptiness than being a lonely ENTP. Gojo didn't have anyone to understand him or even try to understand him throughout the whole story other than Suguru Geto. That's the only character that's ever even tried to even befriend him basically and everything. Maybe Shoko a little bit, but Shoko didn't really like get close to them because she wasn't as strong as him, of course, that's why. But he had no one else other than Suguru. They also tend to blame themselves when something happens to people they care about. I can't help but thinking he blamed himself for what Suguru had done, because if he had been there for him more often and realized Suguru was not in fact okay at all, things could have been a lot different. Supposedly, probably not, because Geto's mind was really f***ed up during that whole time. Maybe if he had been there when Yuki told him about her pain, he could have probably persuaded him to even think of it in a more clearer way and even probably change his mind. You never know in this story aspect. There is 3 sides of Gojo that is very prevalent in the story. His goofy personality. In my opinion, this is just really a fake persona, some kind of a coping mechanism that he got really used to doing since Suguru left him. It's probably just an act he puts up in order to not let others get really close to him. He wouldn't want to accidentally let someone use him and betray someone at the same time. Next, his lunatic personality. There are only 2 scenes where we see him go absolutely nuts. During his fight against Toji and Jogo, Hanami and Choso, if you want him, when he's fighting in Shibuya arc. When he fights extremely strong opponents, he automatically knows he's probably stronger than them. Of course he is. He fights them, exercises them, and has fun at the same time, proving himself that he's the strongest while being a lunatic at the same time. Next, his superiority complex. He's always been told who he is, so on a subconscious level, he lives up to those expectations whenever he does that. At first, I thought he just acted like that because of something related to his eyes, his 6 eyes, but now I'm convinced that it's just because of a bad childhood. This could be exaggerating at this point, but again, on a subconscious level, during those fights, he proves himself that the way he was raised, spending his childhood mastering techniques and learning about the history and politics of his clan, was not in vain because he had eventually became the best. With all those personality traits that make him a really unique character to the broader picture of manga as a whole, makes him a prime candidate to being the loneliest character of all manga, in my opinion. There's another important topic that I want to talk about that ties everything together as a whole. He couldn't stay loyal to one single girl or any woman for that matter. I think this is Gojo's method of having human connections with other people without having to get close to people, you know what I mean? As an attractive man in his late 20s, it's easy for him to charm non-sorcerer women and have some kind of sexual relationship. He's already almost 30, so technically he should be trying to meet a woman who carry his child to make sure his clan won't disappear if he dies. His goal to help students reach their potential is more important for him than all that clan and turmoil. Geto has mentioned that Gojo's in his element when he is alone, so him having a wife and children will mean protecting them. Him getting a family will make a lot of curses and sorcerers come after them, and if he does give in and allows himself to love others, losing them might make him lose himself. That's why Gojo was alone all of his life. That's all he knew and understood, because being the strongest means giving up your life for the greater good. It's pretty clear that Gojo's story is meant to be tragic in a sort of way. Great deal of loneliness that comes with being the strongest person on earth, but every once in a while, blessing does come in a form of a really strong opponent with really strong intentions. Gojo was trapped in the prison realm for over 3 years. In real world time, not in manga time. I'm not really too sure how long he was trapped, maybe like 6 months at most. almost. Just guessing. That's a hypothetical guess. And has finally came back to the story in an incredible way. The tragedy of this situation is that now Gojo has to fight the strongest curse to ever live, Sukuna. All this time being alone when his real adversary was right in front of him during the whole story. Sukuna is the closest that it gets to Gojo's strength, especially since he trained in the prison realm, which made him even stronger since there's no time source in the prison world. The strongest curse versus the strongest human being. Though we learned that Sukuna recently gained the ability of the 10 shadows, so the Zenin clan once said that the 10 shadows technique can beat the 6 eyes or limitless if the right circumstances were to come. Mastering Mahagra. Basically, that's the only circumstance there is. Gojo finally has something to live for and finally has something to die for, to be the strongest curse that took Megami away from him. Gojo as a person and character flourished through this fight, and we saw glimpses of Gojo being happy for once in the manga. Gojo was happy during this whole fight because he knew he was the strongest in the world. But Sukuna had other ideas for who is the strongest in the world. To be the strongest means the ability to do whatever you want, being strong enough to be completely free of the shackles of society, which could be interpreted as the gain. The loss would be the feeling of loneliness, having the strength, but at the same time, missing out on the feelings of being understood, being seen as an anomaly, and being alone. I believe Sukuna never had that person. That's why Yorozu's plea for love was never actually 100% romantically. She noticed the loneliness in his eyes and the loneliness Sukuna feels because he never considered anyone an equal. I believe Sukuna never went through the feelings of having someone satisfy him. The Heian period was the golden area of sorcery, but still inadequate, not satisfying Sukuna enough. That's why Yorozu implied that the loneliest in Sukuna's eyes. That's why I believe that the love Sukuna found isn't any romantic way, but as someone who he can relate to, the absolute strongest of the respective time, but being the honor one. Once again, Gojo also never had any love interest, only love for his students or people around him like teachers and stuff like that. That is important to understand because that shows that Gojo and Sukuna are going through the same feelings of being the strongest. Christmas Eve is also an idolized event, and it will only be fair to conclude and decide who truly the strongest. Gojo has been nurturing and teaching, raising his students for several reasons: to change the Jujutsu verse, to never have them go through what he endured, the feeling of being alone. But the truth is, only Sukuna could actually understand what he went through, for he went through the same problems. But everything has to come to an end. The 10 Shadows technique has destroyed his limitless, and Gojo is now dead, having carried out of the story and series in a good light. Gojo's fight with Sukuna was inevitable going to be a loss for him. Gojo wasn't the strongest that day in the slightest, and I think this is a tragedy. His regret not being there at all finally was let go when Gojo said goodbye to everyone. I love this fight. This fight showed Gojo having fun and be able to withstand the weight of being the strongest in the world, which was his downfall at the same time. Everyone has to fall at some point, and Gege Akutami is a really good writer of Gojo being really strong, have the capabilities of being the best in the world, but at the same time you lose your humanity, and you have to understand that Gojo cannot withstand that type of pressure at all times. He is a human being that has flaws and has to grow as a person throughout the whole story, which he does, but inevitably he will lose to Sukuna, or he already did. I'm just letting y'all know. Being the strongest is a curse and a blessing at the same time, and Gojo didn't want to sacrifice his strength for family, friends, and loved ones, because his main goal in the story is to destroy and reset the Jujutsu world. Though he didn't succeed in his endeavors, he is still one of the most polarizing characters that I've ever read in manga. Hey guys, I appreciate for you watching this video, and I also will apologize for being a month late on this video. I made this video a while ago, or the script per se, about a while ago, probably when Sukuna versus Gojo was still going on, and I apologize for it being extremely late, but I love this video. I put a lot of work into it, so that's why I decided just to keep it. Anyways, I got a lot of interviews coming up. I had a lot of finals at the time, so I apologize for this late video, but I hope you liked the video. Hope you subscribe as well, and hey, Zev is out.